Somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, a man is walking alone in the dark with a 45-pound rucksack cutting into his shoulders, and he has no idea if he is passing or failing. He does not know how far he has come. He does not know how far he has to go. He does not know the time he is supposed to beat, because no one will tell him. The cadre at the checkpoints watch him arrive and say nothing, write something on a clipboard, and point him toward the next set of mountains. This is Delta Force selection at Camp Dawson, and the brutal secret of it is that the rucksack is not the test. The uncertainty is the test. Everyone thinks Delta Force selection is about the body. The 40-mile march, the weight, the lack of sleep, it is not. Those things are real, but they are only the delivery system for the one thing the unit is actually hunting for, a particular kind of mind. A mind that keeps making good decisions when every shred of certainty has been stripped away. Call it comfort with ambiguity. It is the rarest trait in this entire profession, and it is the whole reason some of the hardest men in the Army wash out in the first week. If the mind of the operator interests you more than the muscle, subscribe and stay with me, because that is the layer this channel digs into. Hold on to that man alone in the mountains, not knowing if he is winning. We come back to why the Army built an entire selection course around keeping him in the dark. Start with the design, because it is deliberate and it is cruel in a very specific way. Delta selection runs in the mountains of West Virginia twice a year for about 4 weeks. On the surface, it looks like a land navigation course. A man is given a map, a compass, a rucksack, and a point to reach, and he walks. Then he does it again, and with each iteration the distance grows longer, the ruck grows heavier, and the time he is allowed shrinks. It builds toward a final movement that has become legend inside the community. A roughly 40-mile march over rough ground under a heavy load, to be finished in an amount of time the candidate is never told. Read that again, because it is the key to everything. He is never told the standard. A normal military course gives you a goal. Run 2 miles in this many minutes. March this far by this hour. You know the target, so you know how hard to push. Delta does the opposite on purpose. It removes the target. The candidate does not know if he needs to walk faster or if he is already well ahead. He does not know if the pain in his feet is the pain of failing or the pain of passing with room to spare. He is forced to drive himself across mountain after mountain on nothing but his own internal standard, because the external one has been taken away. The silence is part of the weapon. The cadre who run the course are not coaches. They do not encourage. They do not correct. They do not tell a man he is doing well or warn him he is falling behind. They observe, they record, and they stay quiet. A candidate can go an entire day moving through the West Virginia hills with no human feedback of any kind, no signal about whether the suffering is working. The course is built to answer one question that a stopwatch can never measure. When you take away the map of how you are doing, does this man fall apart, or does he keep moving with the same good judgment he had at the start? By the back half of the course, the body is in ruin. Weeks of long marches, broken sleep, and short rations have hollowed the candidates out, and that erosion is also by design. A fresh, rested man can perform composure for an afternoon. A starved, exhausted man cannot. Strip away food and sleep and the protective layers a person wears in daily life, and what is left at the bottom is the real temperament, the thing the cadre actually want to read. Selection waits for that moment, when the candidate has nothing left to perform with, and then it watches how he carries himself across one more ridgeline in the West Virginia hills with no idea whether it counts. That is comfort with ambiguity, and it matters because of a hard truth every veteran in this audience already knows. No plan survives contact. The mission brief is a beautiful, detailed, color-coded lie that begins dying the moment the first shot is fired. The helicopter lands on the wrong rooftop. The intelligence is a day old. The target is not in the building. In that instant, the operators who freeze, who wait for someone to hand them certainty before they act, are the ones who get people killed. The men who keep functioning, who make a sound decision with half the information and no time, are the ones who bring the team home. Delta does not wait to discover who is who on the objective. It manufactures that exact feeling of uncertainty in the mountains of West Virginia and watches who holds together. There is a reason this is so hard to fake. Under real stress, the thinking part of the brain narrows, and the oldest, most animal part takes the wheel, and most people default to freezing or flailing. The entire value of an operator is that he does neither. He keeps the higher functions running while his body is screaming at him to shut them down. You cannot tell from a fitness test or a friendly interview whether a man can do that. You can only find out by dropping him into genuine, sustained uncertainty and watching what he becomes, which is exactly what 4 weeks in the West Virginia mountains is engineered to do. This idea did not come from nowhere. It came from one man, Colonel Charlie Beckwith, the founder of Delta Force, and he borrowed it from the British. As a young officer in the early 1960s, Beckwith spent a year as an exchange officer with the British Special Air Service, and he came home transformed. The American Special Forces of that era selected for the team, for the strong group man. The British selected for something colder and more individual. A single soldier alone on a mountain in the Brecon Beacons of Wales, judged on his own private endurance and his own private judgment. Beckwith spent more than a decade fighting the army bureaucracy to build a unit that selected the British way, for the whole man rather than the strongest back, and the course in West Virginia is the direct descendant of those lonely Welsh mountains. Beckwith finally won that fight in 1977, when Delta Force was officially formed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. From the first day, he was ruthless about the kind of man he would not accept. He did not want what he called cowboys, the reckless, glory-hunting, trigger-happy soldier who needs a firefight to feel like himself. He wanted the opposite, the mature professional who could be trusted alone in a foreign city with a pistol and a hard decision, and who would make the quiet, correct call with no one watching. The whole architecture of selection, the silence, the missing standard, the no right answer board, is a machine built to tell those two kinds of men apart. If you are the kind of person who finds the design of that test more gripping than any gunfight, then the cadet membership on this channel was built for you. Cadets get every video a full day before the public, a badge beside their name in the comments so I know which viewers are the serious ones, and a personal shout-out from me every single month. If you have come this far into a video about the inside of an operator's head, you are already one of us. Tap join and stand a little closer. Surviving the mountains is only half of it. The other half is a room, and a table, and a panel of men waiting to take a candidate's mind apart. It is called the Commander's Board, and it comes after the physical phases have already broken most of the field. Around that table sit the most senior operators in the unit, the Command Sergeants Major, the commander of Delta Force himself, and one more man who matters enormously, a unit psychologist. They are not there to ask how many push-ups he can do. They are there to find out who he actually is. The board hits the candidate with questions that have no clean answer. They hand him a hypothetical mission, a scenario built so that every option is partly wrong, and they watch how he reasons through it. They are not grading the answer, they are grading the thinking. Does he panic when there is no right choice? Does he bluff and pretend to a certainty he cannot have? Or does he stay calm, weigh the bad options honestly, commit to one, and own it? They probe for maturity, for emotional control, for the rare humility to admit a mistake out loud, and above all, for sound judgment in the gray areas where the rules run out. The unit psychologist sits there reading the man underneath the answers, because Delta has learned that the operator who cannot tolerate uncertainty in a quiet room will shatter under it in a loud one. The men who have written about this from the inside describe the same thing. Eric Haney, one of the original members of the unit, wrote about selection in his book Inside Delta Force, and the picture he paints is not one of supermen. It is one of ordinary-looking, mature, deeply self-reliant men, and of watching candidate after candidate vanish from the course without ever being told why, each one left to wonder if he had measured up to a standard he was never allowed to see. Of an original class of more than 160 hopefuls, only a small handful earned their way in. The ones who made it were rarely the strongest or the fastest, they were the steadiest. That is the counter-narrative this channel keeps returning to. The movies sell you the Delta operator as a physical Superman, all muscle and aggression and certainty. The reality the selection course reveals is the opposite. The unit is screening, above everything else, for emotional stability and judgment under chaos. It would rather have a calm, thoughtful man of average strength who never loses his head than a magnificent athlete who needs to be told he is winning in order to keep going. The deadliest thing about a Delta operator is not in his arms. It is the stillness behind his eyes when everything around him has come apart. You can see it in the way these men carry themselves away from the battlefield. The Delta operators who have come into public view tend not to be the loudest men in the room. They are watchful, economical with words, slow to anger, quick to listen. That calm is not a personality quirk. It is the visible surface of the trait that carried them through the mountains and the board, the same steadiness that lets a man think clearly while a building burns around him. The unit spent 4 weeks and then an entire career hunting for that quality, precisely because it cannot be bolted on later. It is either the foundation a man is built on, or it is the crack that opens under pressure. Beckwith saw the cost of that composure himself on the worst night of his life. In April of 1980, his young unit launched its first real mission, the rescue of the American hostages held in Tehran, and it fell apart in the Iranian desert at a refueling site called Desert 1, when a helicopter and a tanker plane collided in the dark and burned. 8 servicemen died. The plan did not merely bend that night, it shattered, and Beckwith had to stand in the firelit sand and make cold decisions, while everything he had spent a decade building came apart around him. That is the night that proves the entire philosophy. The mission failed, but the men did not dissolve into panic, and the steadiness that let them function in that catastrophe was the exact quality the mountains had been screening for all along. Now here is the part I want the veterans and the serious students in the comments to argue over, because I do not think the answer is obvious. If comfort with ambiguity is the real trait that defines a Delta operator, then it is a trait you mostly cannot train into a man. You either have that steadiness when certainty disappears, or you do not, which means selection is not really building these men at all. It is just finding the rare ones who already arrived that way, and turning everyone else around. So tell me, is the best operator made on that course, or is he simply discovered there, and was he always going to be that way long before he ever shouldered a ruck in West Virginia? And if that question is the kind that stays with you, then the public version of this channel is only the surface. The official membership is where I put the material that does not survive the edit, the assessments and the operator accounts, and the names that get cut before a video like this can be posted in the open. It is the part of the story I have to leave on the floor to keep this online. If you want what gets trimmed away, step up to official, and I will see you behind the line. The man in the mountains finally reaches the last checkpoint, still not knowing his time, still not knowing if any of it was enough. His feet are wrecked, his shoulders are raw under the rucksack straps, and the only thing he has left is whatever was underneath the exhaustion all along. A cadre member looks up from the clipboard and tells him to get on the truck. He still does not know whether that means he passed or failed, and in that final moment of not knowing, the course gets its last and truest reading of exactly the man it was built to find. The ones who belong in Delta Force are the ones who can live inside that not knowing and keep walking the next ridgeline anyway. The world will always picture the strongest body. The mountain was only ever looking for the steadiest mind.